What is up, everyone? We are on part 3 of the previews of the new set, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Probably going to be a part 4 because we only have about half of the cards spoiled so far. But we're going through the cards that look interesting, that, there's some potential to see play. Maybe some special new deck gets made, or maybe a one of or two of in another deck. But yeah, let's take a look at it. Before we get into the preview cards, just a reminder that there's an early access event coming up real soon. I'm going to be a part of that. It's on November 9th and 10th. I'll have more details about the time when I'll be streaming and things like that, but we'll be playing lots of new brews, and I'll definitely be posting some stuff to Twitter about some new deck ideas and things like that I got. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's get into the previews. Alrighty, so continuing where we left off before, here's the next new card that I think is interesting. Deep Cavern Bat, 1 and a black for a 1/1 flying lifelinker. And whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it until the Deep Cavern Bat leaves the battlefield. So we've seen cards like this before. There's so many of them. I can't remember all the names. Something about Earworm, something like that. Kitesail Freebooter. Yeah, that's another one that is very similar. So you choose a card in the opponent's hand. It basically gets exiled until this leaves the battlefield. Kitesail Freebooter was a flying 1/2 human. It actually saw a lot of play back then. Nowadays, I think the power level is a little bit low on that. This does have lifelink. And this can also hit a non-land card, whereas Kitesail Freebooter, I believe, could only hit a like a non-creature or non-land card. So I think this is just almost a strict upgrade on Kitesail Freebooter with 1 less toughness. Is it good enough? Maybe if you have a Bat Tribal deck, this could be good enough. It does have lifelink, so it does help you a little bit there. It is evasive. Maybe you could have like a Demir Tempo style deck and want this. Not sure. It's interesting. That's why I've included in this list. The potential's there. Kitesail Freebooter, as I mentioned, saw a lot of play in like Pirates deck and human decks. So definitely some potential here. So anyway, cool card. I probably think it's a little too underpowered to see play, but you never know. All right, next one, Spring Loaded Saw Blades. This is 1 and a white. It is flash. It's an artifact. It has flash. It's an artifact. And whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target tapped creature an opponent controls. So you can play this on your turn, and the opponent attacked last turn, kill something, or you can play it on the opponent's turn after they've declared attackers and it taps. Only thing it doesn't work against is vigilant creatures, basically. So it kills something for 2 mana, and then craft with artifact. So for 4 mana, and you exile an artifact from your battlefield or the graveyard, then you can flip this into a 5/5 vehicle. It says tap 2 other untapped artifacts that you control, and this becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. And you can also crew it for 1. So you can either tap 2 artifacts to crew it, or you can crew it for 1. Kind of decent. I mean, I guess if there's an artifact, maybe there's a blue-white artifact deck. We saw some other synergy that wants a lot of artifacts. So, if you have a lot of artifacts and you can crew this for free, even if you don't have creatures on the battlefield, it's a good removal early game. Good creature win con late game. So, yeah, maybe there is some artifact synergy in this set as well. And we have some already in standard. Maybe that's enough to push artifacts to finally be a thing. Not sure. It's always been just a little bit too weak, so we'll see. We'll have to see. All right, next one, Bartholomew de Presidio, or Bartolome de Presidio. Yeah, I probably butchered the name a little bit, but white and a black for a 2/1 legendary creature vampire knight. I think this card is super powerful and will definitely see play somewhere. Sacrifice another creature artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So having a free sack outlet is pretty insane. It also works for artifacts. It's a payoff as well. I mean, a lot of times you don't even need the card without a sacking to be the payoff. Like Woe Strider kind of had a payoff. You get to scry one, but just having the free sack outlet was usually good enough to trigger your other things. So it has both. You sack stuff, it gets bigger. You can trigger some other sack effects. Yeah, free sack outlet is going to be good. This is going to be a good card. So this will see play somewhere. Very powerful. Could even see in older formats, vampires or things like that. So very good. Skullcap Snail. This is a 1 and a black for a 1/1 fungus snail. And whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. So this is a burglar rat, or many of the other variations, but it's kind of an upside. We had like a card that was black for the same ability called Yarok's Familiar, I believe. This is basically the same as Yarok's Familiar, but a little bit cheaper to cast. So I'm not saying it's gonna see play. I'm not saying it's amazing, but it's pretty decent. It doesn't discard it, so they can't get some benefit off that with the new set. It exiles it, so it's gone forever, basically. So interesting. Maybe there's some deck that wants this. There was the new God card that wants them to have a few cards in their hands. This does this. This doesn't trigger their Discover or Cavern. Whatever it's called, the abilities from this new set, where that you want to have permanents in your graveyard. So yeah, seems like an upside and could potentially see play there. Next one, Charter Course. This is a reprint, 1 in a blue. Draw 2 cards, then discard unless you attacked. This is, in most decks, just a straight up 2 mana draw 2. So this card has seen a lot of play, going all the way back to probably even Legacy, to be honest. It's just a solid card, drawing you for 2 mana in most decks. It'll probably see play in Merfolks, probably see play in mono blue tempo, probably see play in any blue aggressive deck. You're probably going to see this card. Next one, Vito, Fanatic of Aklazats. Okay, I still can't say this name. Aklazats. So yeah, it's 4 mana, 4/4 flying, legendary vampire demon. Whenever you sack another permanent, you gain 2 life, and then if it's the second time, they lose 2 life. If it's the third time, then you create a 4/3 white and black vampire creature tokens. So you want to sack 3 things basically to do the drain and create a 4/3. How can you sack 3 things? Well, as we saw earlier, we have this card here as a free sack outlet. There was another really good sack outlet earlier on that draws a card. So I think there's probably a black-white sack kind of tribal deck thing going on that would want some number of this card, maybe just a 1 of. Could be, up to a 3 of, but probably I'm gonna guess 1 or 2 of, as kind of a payoff for sacking a bunch of stuff. So yeah, decent card, not as powerful as this one, but definitely got some interesting sack payoff there. Next card, Treasure Map. This is a reprint again. This saw a ton of play in both standard and historic. There's, especially with like colorless decks that needed a draw outlet before the One Ring was printed. This was really a great way to get draw in colorless decks. It fixes your mana and it gives you treasures, and then your treasures you can use to draw cards later, and it ramps you. So yeah, it's definitely a good card. It needs the right home, like a kind of a control deck, maybe a control deck that needs draw that can't normally get draw easily. So could be like a red control deck, or maybe even a mono green control deck, something like that. Plus, if you have more treasures that you're creating, just more upside. So maybe red, like big red, could want this, so that even if you have incidental treasure tokens you've created, you can draw more cards. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It needs the right deck, but definitely it's got some power and could see some play. All right, coming up next, Throne of the Grim Captain. This is 2 mana for a legendary artifact. Tap, mill 2 cards. So At first, all it does is mill each turn, and then you can craft it with a dinosaur, merfolk, pirate, and vampire. So you have to somehow get those 4 cards in your graveyard, and then you can turn it into this guy, a 7/7 menace, trample, lifelink, hexproof. Hexproof means it can't be killed easily. Whenever the Grim Captain attacks, each opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent, and you put an exiled creature used to craft this onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. So it's insanely powerful if you flip it, but to flip it, you do need a lot of weird stuff. You need 4 mana, and you need a dinosaur, merfolk, pirate, and a vampire. So there might be some that are like dinosaur vampire or pirate vampire. I think there is pirate vampire, so probably you can find some pirate vampire. I don't know if there's a mix of dinosaur and merfolk. But if you can somehow get all 4 of those, it's a really nice payoff. So it's probably worth it. Maybe you can make some deck that can get this to work. Definitely a cool card. The next one is a land. This is about the only cave that I really thought was good. Pit of Offering, enters tapped. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 3 target cards from graveyards. So very good graveyard hate. Might even be good enough to see play in older formats, possibly. Just because it's like a land that exiles stuff for you. And tap for colorless, but you can also tap for a mana of any color among the exiled cards. So if you exile like Atraxa, now you can cast basically any card because you've got 4 different mana colors in there. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. It's basically a colored source that's tapped, that also has the benefit of exiling stuff to stop like reanimation decks. So I think it's pretty good. We'll have to see. I think in standard it will probably see play. Don't know about other formats, but it's pretty decent. It's probably the best cave. Next card, Nook and Crannies. This is a 1 green enchantment. This is a weird, very weird card. I'm not sure about this one, but when you play it, you get to choose a creature, and that creature explores. Whenever a creature explores, you scry 1 first and then explore, so you get a little bit extra benefit on your explore. If a land enters the battlefield under your control and you control 7 or more, then you transform it. So it kind of helps you get to 7 because Explorer is helping you find land cards, right? And then the flip side is it taps for green, but also if you pay 4 and tap it, you look at the top 4 cards of your library and you find a creature and put that into your hand. So interesting. It's like early game finds you lands, late game finds you creatures, so that sounds pretty good. It's a little bit slow. So if you can find the right deck where, you know, maybe a deck that doesn't have a lot of 1-drops, so you play this on 1 and then the rest of the deck kind of just pays for itself. Maybe some sort of explore deck. It's interesting. It is, again, these are all interesting cards in this set. It's hard to tell if they're really good enough. Like, it's not super powerful, but the ability is interesting enough that it might see play. All right, this is the last one we're going to talk about for now. We've got plenty more coming, so I'm sure we'll have more of these, but Belligerent Yearling. This is a 1 and a red for a dinosaur. It's a 3/2 with trample. So pretty good stats just by itself. And then whenever another dinosaur enters the battlefield under control, you may have Belligerent Yearling. Base power becomes equal to the creature's power until end of turn. So basically, you know, if you play bigger and bigger dinosaurs in some red-green dinosaur deck, this could potentially get really huge. Like if you play Galta, then this is going to be a 12/2. And it has trample, so that's pretty good. So I think it's pretty decent. It'll be good in, again, like a dinosaur aggro deck. So we'll have to see. Is it possible? Could be. All right, we're gonna stop there for now. Wait for the next spoilers, and until next time, you go out there and have some fun, and I'll see you.